Welcome to That Digital Take. I'm your host, Tori Webster. This episode of That Digital Take is brought to you by Chatter's Hair Salon, proudly Canadian and your go-to destination for all things hair for over 30 years. Whether you're refreshing your color, trying a bold new style, or stocking up on your favorite products, Chatter's has you covered. And right now, they're treating my listeners to an exclusive offer. Get 20% off retail purchases online with code DIGITAL20 at checkout. Some exclusions apply. Don't miss out. Visit chatters.ca and give your hair the care it deserves. Hi, everyone. Welcome to That Digital Take. I have the lovely Sarah Jenkins with me today. This is going to be a really fun episode because Sarah and I go way back. We were just discussing it. Maybe I'll be able to insert the clip later, but just talking about how we met. We both went to Ryerson. Now it's TMU, the rebrand. But yeah, we truly have kind of come up in the industry together, but on very different paths. And I figured it'd be really interesting for my audience to learn more about how you got into the industry. And I think one of the most common questions for people is like the pivot of potentially working a more traditional job and then turning into a creator. And I know for you, you found TikTok a little bit later in the pandemic. Well, not later. TikTok you found when everyone found it, which was the pandemic.
Yes, but creating
and being a creator in social media for you came a little bit later. So for those who don't know you, introduce yourself and then tell us about how you became a content creator and influencer.
Love. Well, hi, I'm Sarah. If you don't know me, as Tori said, I wasn't like a creator first in the sense of like in front of the camera. So like we both went to TMU, Ryerson, whatever. And I was on the sport media side. So I went to school for like sports production media, but I always loved YouTube and social media production. And I really wanted to like work in that space specifically. So I went to things like VidCon, all these things as like a fan / like person trying to like learn. So like I always like was in that space, but just not in front of the camera. Then I worked at places like Yahoo Sports right out of school, which is like a digital only place. So I was like shooting, editing, social content, on camera a little bit. Then I went and worked at CBC for a long time in like traditional television production, which is very different. And then actually it was just before the pandemic hit that I started learning TikTok because I wanted to be employable because I was a freelancer at the time. So I got let go from my old job at Yahoo because like they just like fired half the team on a random Wednesday. It was very traumatic.
That's shocking.
At like 23 to be laid off is like super
traumatic.
Yeah, traumatic. And especially when you've always been like, like I'm gonna get the perfect job, then get a promotion, whatever.
Yeah.
So then that happened. So I went freelance. I started working at CBC in like television production. But I was like, I need to be employable. And this new app, TikTok, is like what everyone's doing. And if I say I'm a digital content producer, then I'm gonna like learn this app. So I started making like vlogs of me going to work and stuff like that. And those did gain some traction, but it wasn't until the pandemic and I lost all my work because as a freelancer, you'd like, obviously there's no sports going on, so there's nothing for me to produce. And I mandated myself 3 videos a day because I was like, I need a reason to get up in the morning or else I won't do anything. Yeah, literally. I was like, I'm going to rot and die if I don't do something because I'm just such a highly productive person. And then I saw the first 10K, then 20, whatever. And I just like saw that there was an audience. And then actually I got full-time at CBC in that summer, like July of 2020. But I was also simultaneously like starting to like be more known as like a TikToker than like a producer, which was a very interesting like transition for me. And then I just kept doing both, which is funny. But actually I have like such a vivid memory of you and I at my birthday in Trinity Bellwoods Park in the pandemic. So this is like June 2020. And you were the first one being like, oh my God, you're like an influencer now. You're a content creator now. It was the first time I ever was like, oh shit, I am a content creator now. Like
yes, I am.
I had never had anyone say it, but it was so like, that's where I've always been so grateful that I've always had you in my life. Cause like, I felt like I had someone like, even though we're the same age, like an older sister like guiding me along it because like, I actually was never alone in like the transition because I had like you and I knew Jacqueline and like all of these people from
that's so nice.
Years before. So yeah, it just kind of like happened one day and then literally in the park you were like, you're a content creator and I'm like, I guess I am.
Yes, you are. You are an influencer.
Yeah, so then now I did that and CBC full time. Both. I would argue both were full time. Like you know how much work it is for 4 years. 4 years, and then just this past November, I left my full-time job.
That's a lot, and we can get into that in a little bit later in the episode, but you brought up an interesting point that is a bit of an aside, but I think you'd have an interesting take on this. So you've clearly had a lot of hats, and you are, jack of all trades, master of none, which I consider myself as well. It's like,
I think it's a compliment. Like, I think,
100%.
like, it's, like, not niching down. It's, like
100%.
the way to, like, have the most opportunities to make the most money is knowing how to do
To
the most
do
things. Yeah,
everything and then
exactly.
just be, like, pretty good at it all.
100 that's there's so many people that are, like, not good at anything and they only do one thing, so it's
Yes.
like, why not be a little bit good at everything is the best.
Agreed. Anyways, so that kind of brought me to a pivot because I've been dealing with this sort of sentiment in my own life. I'm curious what your thoughts are. So now, just with the shift of digital, and not that like these jobs are going away anytime soon, because I really don't believe that they are. But obviously, every year you kind of feel those shifts, or
Mhm,
especially me, because I've been in the industry for 10 years. I think I just naturally, or I have different waves in different
mhm.
years, and I can just feel the changes. And I've felt a little bit of change in 2025. How do you manage tying your identity to your work? Because Adam and I, my partner and I, have realized we essentially tie our entire
Mm.
identity to our work. And we are like, oh my God, if I'm not Tori the influencer and you're not Adam the cinematographer, like, who am I?
Yeah, so I will say the best thing to come out of getting laid off at 23 years old is I cut that. Um,
Wow.
so I was very much like Sarah from Yahoo. I was Sarah from Yahoo as a producer at Yahoo, and I put so much weight in that, and like that's how you were known on like in networks or on Twitter, like sports. Twitter is very big in sports or X now, I guess, whatever. But that's like how you were
Sure.
known, or like, oh, like Sarah's the one that goes to like produces like Leafs content, whatever. I was so tied to like who I was, where I worked, that holding so much power and being a
Yeah.
producer and what that meant. Like having the title of producer was so important to me. It's literally why I took the job at Yahoo because they offered me a producer job, whereas CBC could only offer me associate producer. Like that was
Wow.
the decision. And so when I got laid off, I quickly learned at 23 that, oh shit, you can like be the best at your job, put everything into a company, work all the overtime, do all the networking, do everything that like school tells you you're supposed to do. And then on a random Wednesday morning, they go, we don't have the budget to pay your salary anymore. Please pick up your box of things and then leave. And it's like, it's so humbling that it then made me not tie who I was to what my job is. I was like, I need to have something outside of work. And honestly, I don't do TikTok if that doesn't happen, just not because of like I don't know, I think it's because like, I was putting myself in the box of, I only do behind the scenes, I'm only a producer, I'm only this, because so much of my identity was tied to it. And obviously, like,
Mm.
as creatives, part of our identity is always gonna be in what we do, and whether it's making a TikTok, working on a film, a music video, writing a script, working on the Olympics, whatever it might be, it is always, like, a creative's idea and whatever. So, like, a part of you is always gonna be, like, in it, but it's just understanding that your entire, like, I don't know, identity and, like,
Your
self-worth
essence.
and
Yeah.
essence doesn't have to come from that.
Yeah, and I guess that's interesting because what's different for me is I've never tied my confidence or self-work to my
Mhm,
work, but I have tied my identity to my work. So
mhm.
that's like the
Yeah,
differentiator.
and I think yeah,
Like,
and it's true. It's like I was having this conversation with someone yesterday because, they were a sport media graduate, and they were like, "Well, I work in retail now, like, that's not like
mm,
I should be in a better spot because of what my degree is and my title," and I
sure.
was so good in school, but I was like, "But, like, don't tie it to that, like, just know that you're in this period because you're trying to, like you're there because you wanna work at Lululemon right now because you know that they hire within, and maybe in 5 years, you're now, like, running their marketing, like, that's the difference."
Totally.
So, yeah, it's it's a good point though to differentiate like your confidence being tied to it versus
Mhm.
like who you are. But it is like I catch myself being like when someone like I introduce them myself, I'll say I'm a producer, and that's like the thing I tie to. It's also why I think I struggled with like the influencer title for a while
Yeah.
because I tied myself so closely to like I'm a producer, like that's what I am.
Well, also, don't you think that the word producer holds a lot more weight than the word
For
influencer? And I've
100%.
talked about that so much on the show. Like, the word
Yeah.
influencer has this negative connotation. It's not
Hmm.
respected in the industry the same way. But the second you say, oh, I'm a producer, people are
For
like,
sure.
oh my God, amazing. What do you produce? It's like, well, actually, if
Exactly.
I said influencer, I also produce shit all day long,
For sure, for
but just
sure.
in a
And you and
different
I have sat on
way.
panels where we've talked about this before. Like it's like literally and or like content creator versus like
Yeah,
producer. All of those things. It all means the same thing. The
totally.
skills I do as a producer that has worked on television shows, the Olympics, whatever, are the exact same skills I do when creating content. Like it's the same. So
1000%.
like I think once I realized that it's like all the same as you said, like master of none, having a bunch of skill sets to whatever. Now I'm just Sarah, and I'm now that I'm in this weird transition where I don't have a title, I don't have like a I don't know, like I'm figuring out what I want to do now. I'm a
Yeah.
freelancer. It's truly like I'm learning to not hold so much weight with the title.
And how are you managing your time right now? Because obviously, well, I'd love to learn about how you managed your time when you had both the full-time job and the full-time job
Yeah.
part 2. And then now that you have more free time, how is that mapping out for you?
I mean, I'm still probably working almost just as much. The difference is like I didn't know what like having an evening off to like watch television was before because like I'd always have to at least be working when doing both. And granted, I'd work from home. So like sometimes you can like get away with like doing other stuff. It's like the
Sure.
reality. Like anyone that's working from home that says they're not doing other stuff while they're working from home is lying. Like everyone does. But I don't know. I just didn't know any different. Like I didn't know anything different. So I just like could always balance it. I think now though, the difference is the quality of my content is going up because I have the time to like sit and think about it.
Mm,
Whereas like everything was just on like, I hadn't really updated the way I did my vlogs for like years because I just like was on autopilot because I knew it was easy because I knew it.
totally.
And then now it was weird. So the first month, January, like first real month, like I left at the end of November, but the first real month I'd say was January. And I'm so corporate trained. I've been a corporate girl for like 8 years. And so I would go in, I'd wake up, make my coffee, go into my second bedroom, sit at my desk from 8:30 until noon. I'd take a lunch break from 12 to 1.
So
And then I
funny. But you
like
probably like the routine and the stability
it's
of
like I was
that.
just so used to it. So what I'm learning now is how to like
How to
rewire
fuck off and
myself.
do
Yeah,
whatever you want. Today I
literally.
watched White Lotus at 8:50 in the morning just because I
But
could.
exactly, and, like, that's all I craved is, like, being
Yeah.
able to do that, so I'm like, I have to give myself more grace to do that. I'm also, like, really productive at nighttime, so I need to remind myself it's like, okay, like, if
Lean
I'm
into
working
your
lean into
productivity
exactly.
windows. Everyone has different windows. Like I'm such a morning person, so I'm like,
Mhm.
that's my time to shine. And also, it's weird in our line of work because sure, I know people will be like, oh, blah, you got to watch White Lotus at 9 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah, but only because on other days I'm working from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. because I have no choice or I'm on a press trip where I have no control of my schedule. Like there's just waves as a self-employed person. Like there's
Mhm.
times where you have time where you can lean into having more time off and then times where you just don't have that flexibility.
Yeah, and I'm learning that right now. It's just, like, weird. The way I was describing it to my therapist, very important to be in therapy if you're someone that's, like, I don't know, chaotically brained like me. I I've always been, like, in, like, the school structure, and so, like, you go to school and you, like, you know where you're gonna be, you know where you're gonna be the next year, all of that, and then, like, after that, you go into the corporate structure, and, like, okay, if I am here for this many years, then I'm
Mm.
gonna get a promotion, then I'm gonna get this and whatever, and then I went, "Just kidding," leaving that entire structure. So everything that I've known forever, I've just blown up, and so
Yeah.
it's taking me a little bit of an adjustment to, like,
But that makes
get
total
used for
sense.
sure, and I'm giving myself the grace.
Yeah.
I don't regret leaving the full-time thing. I have more, like, creative freedom than I've had in, like, years. Like, my brain is just, like, not filled with, like, bullshit
Guck.
and, like
But you
and
know what's
corporate
gonna be
bullshit.
ironic is you're never gonna be able to go back now, because
No,
that
I
is
know.
also the struggle. Because 'cause I've been the other way, I've only ever worked for
Mhm,
myself. Sure, I've done internships and gone in places and had a little bit of structure in some of my university years, but really not really. I've always kind of been self-employed since 2014, and so I'm like, "Nobody can control me. Nobody can lock me down. Don't try to hold me down." So it's like, I don't know
I
how I'd
know.
ever be able to go back, and I think that is part of the inherent fear or what continues to drive me is like, I need to remain my own boss. I need to remain creative and like have that
Mhm.
freedom to like live my
And
life.
I think what I've learned and through like the layoff and all of this is like the biggest misconception is that like you have security when you're at a 9 to 5 job.
You
You
don't.
actually don't have, especially at the CBC. Are you kidding me with like an
Yeah.
election coming up and all that stuff? Like
Mhm.
you do not have any more security at that 9 to 5 job than I would argue that we do with the ebbs and flows of how like content works and marketing dollars and all of that.
I agree.
So it's just a matter of like the good people will find work, the people that like know how to do a lot of things will find work. And it's that's what that layoff taught me was like, oh, I'm not even like safe in like this structure where I thought I was gonna stay at this company for 5 plus years, then like what's the point?
So true.
So yeah, it's just learning
I'd
how to
rather
like
pay the passion tax and
a
do what I
hundred
love.
percent, and
Yeah.
maybe you're making a little less money, or maybe you're like, whatever.
Or
I'm also
more.
or more. I
Yeah.
have the benefit of like my partner has benefits, so I didn't have to like give that part up,
Oh,
which is
that's
great.
nice. Yeah.
But
Both my
yeah.
partner and I are self-employed, so we're like,
But I mean, like realistically, how often are you going to the dentist? You know what I mean?
and hey, I'll pay for it
Yeah,
when the time
exactly,
comes. Yeah.
exactly. So it's just I'm learning, I'm ebbing and flowing. I'm getting used to the fact that I can take a 9:30 a.m. Pilates class and not have to like do it before I go into an office or something. But I'm still freelancing a lot right now. Like I still have a 5 a.m. shoot on Thursday, so it's like that grind never ends.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm sure that's nice for young people to hear too, is like, it isn't even all figured out at 28. It's not figured out at 23. It's not figured
No,
out at 28. It's a process. These industries
exactly,
ebb, they flow. I'll be a showman my whole life, whether or not that's in this format or in a different one in 10
exactly.
years, we'll figure out what that looks like. But I really appreciate you sharing that. So let's head into our next question. What is one thing that shocked you about becoming an influencer? Was it the PR? Was it the money? Was it the, like, what was something you
Mm,
learned early on when you became an influencer and you're like, oh shit, like what?
okay, so I will say again because I've known you for so long. I think the PR and stuff
You got.
I understood because I would go to like your apartment and you'd be like, CoverGirl sent me 800 lipsticks.
Yeah.
Take one. And it's like, oh my God, as a poor university student, you're like, oh my God, like
Take
a freelance,
whatever I can
whatever.
get. Yeah.
So I think I'd seen that enough to understand how it could, like,
The
whatever,
gifting
how the
side of it.
gifting side of it, how it worked. The money I didn't expect,
Okay.
especially in the Canadian market. I guess I
Yeah.
just assumed all the big American influencers make a ton of money, but I didn't realize how strong the Canadian market was,
Yeah.
especially if you're like a decent sized fish in a small pond.
Totally.
I didn't know, which is crazy. Um, I I don't know, like maybe like the parasocial relationships,
Oh,
like that's the
yeah?
part I used to literally post 3 videos a day. So like I literally like asked for it. Like I literally would film every single thing from my morning coffee to this to that. I guess like when you post something, I don't know if you're the same way. I just forget that it's real people sometimes watching it, and it's
Totally.
taken me a long time to learn that they are real people, and that if you don't want something on the internet, you can't like show. I don't know. There's just
I
like
get
that
that.
parasocial relationship is
Do you
sometimes tough for
think
me.
that you've, like, pulled back a little bit because of that?
100%.
I know that I have in extreme ways, like, even
Mhm.
now with my new house, I'm so, "Oh, I don't wanna post it, I don't wanna," like, I'm
I
so
know.
precious about things, whereas before I was not that way, and you do start to respect your privacy in a different
I also
way.
think that's like frontal lobe development. Like I think
Sure.
that's
I
us
think
being older.
age
Like
fully plays
when I
into that.
really started vlogging, I was 23,
Yeah.
24. And the
Yeah.
type of stuff I posted then is not like someone would say a mean comment, I just pull out my phone and start like filming or whatever. I
Totally.
just like don't have the time to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I think also the type of content I make is like I'm prioritizing quality over quantity now, which I think is in then turn maybe pulling back because I'm not sharing quite literally every single day of my life. For up until maybe a year ago, I vlogged
Yeah,
like I shared a vlog every single day. I did not miss a day for like 3 years straight,
that is insane.
3 or
Talk about
4.
that cadence a little bit. Like, were you filming and editing? Like, were you a day ahead of her, or were you
No,
live on the
it was
day?
in and that was another thing I learned because it was in the moment and like
How were you present for those 3 years?
that was a great question. I filmed in app, and I know that sounds crazy
No,
because I
that
didn't have to edit.
sure.
So like I filmed in app for a long time,
You would
then
just do small micro, like,
clips.
adjustments and
Yeah.
clips and
And honestly, if my friends went to dinner with me or something, they wouldn't even notice I filmed because I'm just
yeah,
like, it's all
pretty
POV. It's
fast.
like so quick.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm like, okay, guys, now we need a shot of me walking in or something.
Yeah,
Like everything was POV. Very like raw and gritty was the style that I was doing.
totally.
Then in 2023 is when I started moving to like editing on CapCut and filming on my phone. And that I would just like I can turn on an edit in 5 minutes just because
Yeah,
I've done it for so, and
it's
I know how to
fast.
shoot to make myself not edit that much. But then in 2024 to 2025, like to now, I've really just like taken a step back on like how much I share and also giving
Mm,
myself more peace. Like when I went to Asia was the first time that I was like days behind. Like normally I'd be posting in the moment on whatever, like a
yeah.
trip. Like if I did something that day, it'd be like posted that day. Whereas like I wanted to be like 5 or 6 days
Ahead.
ahead so that like by the time I left Thailand, I was in Bali and nobody knew where I was on that thing. And I just never done that before, but it was a great practice for my brain to learn how to do that
It's
because
also important for safety,
for
though.
sure. And that's why. So there were some
Yeah.
safety things that happened that I just like,
You were like, "I don't need people to know my exact whereabouts." And you know what's interesting? I
yeah.
was just in New York with some influencers on a press trip, and I was asking the other girls about that. I said, "Do you guys post live?" Because I saw someone geotag where we were at for dinner, and I was like, "Brother, literally delete that. Like, no offense. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just like not trying to be
Like
in the
even like put it like a couple hours later. Like that's fine.
yeah,
I know. That was even like this weekend when Tara and I were in like this like cabin in the woods. It was in Grafton, Ontario. And like we
yeah,
sat there and we're like, should we post like are people gonna be able to figure out where we are? We're two girls
mm,
staying in a cabin
alone in
in
the
the
woods."
granted, there's like the people that own it are on the property. There's all these things that like whatever. So we decided to post, just not give any indication on where we were or how far away we drove,
Yeah,
which like no one could figure out where it was unless you were like from my hometown, which like some from my hometown, whatever.
sure.
But yeah, it's like a real conversation. I just don't think I thought about that a
Interesting.
few years ago. And like, yeah,
Yeah.
even like posting stories not in real time. I just like used to do it in real time because to go back to the question about how I managed both is because if I didn't post something right away, I'd
It
never
would
post it.
die.
I just like wouldn't have the time. My brain would just move on to the next thing and I wouldn't do it. So, but learning how to adjust and do that.
Even still, sometimes things will just die for me because I'm not posting in the moment, and
Hmm.
I just have to be okay with that because
Yeah.
it's hard to keep up with all the content you're constantly putting out.
And
But
capturing and like
and
thinking that you're
capturing.
going to go and edit it later. And you're just like,
Yeah.
oh no, it's just going to die in my pocket.
And I do think there's something to be said about when we were growing the channels or growing on TikTok, like the consistency is so important.
For
Whereas
sure.
once you get to a certain place, you're kind of like, okay, like quality is more important than quantity. I'd rather
Hmm.
have a video do really well and go viral than like post a bunch of videos that are going to kind of flop and be kind
Yeah.
of shit.
And I
So,
also, yeah, and now like the audience like knows who I am. So it's like
yeah,
I don't need like that. I love my core audience. I actually would be totally fine if like that's the audience I just get to keep forever and that's
totally.
totally fine. Yeah. So and I've actually seen like I mean algorithms change, you know that. So
Yeah.
even the TikTok algorithm has changed. Like posting 3 times a day isn't even beneficial anymore.
Right.
Whereas it was
Back
because it was
when
just like throwing everything. They just wanted content, content, content. So
totally,
yeah,
totally.
there's been lots of learning curves, but I feel like yeah, it's just learning to like share a little bit less has been
Yeah.
one of them. But well, else you can still be authentic while while doing it, but it's just like sharing less. And I think a misconception is like you're less authentic if you're not sharing everything, which I don't think is true.
So talk about that a little bit, because that's one thing I love about your channel, and you show up so much like who you are in real life, and you're so
Yeah.
relatable, and I think that's why your community particularly is so kind of invested. I guess that would
Mm-hmm.
be the right way to say it. Like, they're very invested in your life, which I
Mm-hmm.
love.
Mm-hmm.
And I also feel like they probably look at you and they're like, that might feel attainable in a nice way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have a nice Toronto niche, like they get to see your life, like they're very involved. How do you deal with that as someone that is also growing? Like, not only are you growing as a person, but
Mm-hmm.
you're making more money as an influencer, you're doing these fun things. Like, how do you maintain that relatability or that
Mm-hmm.
authenticity when you, as like, the whole like Remy Bader of it all, like,
Yes,
she
exactly.
blew up and everyone's like, oh, but you were our relatable queen.
Yeah.
And the audience almost like resents you as you get better.
I
And
know,
as
it's like
you,
they want you to grow, but like not too big that you're
yes,
suddenly like in a different tax bracket than them or something.
right.
Well, one, I one, I live like very well like beneath my means. Like I only ever lived off my CBC salary.
Right.
So like anything else was just like gravy.
Bonus.
Like it was just like I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I didn't grow up in a place that I had an RSP or savings, any of that stuff. So what I just took this as an opportunity to be like, great, some people get a head start because they have like they get inherited money, their parents give them money, whatever.
Yeah.
This is my opportunity to give myself a head start.
I
And that's
love
just how I've
that.
always treated it. So I think like yes, I'm getting invited to like certain events, like whatever, and like they're so unique and different. Sorry, friends, I had to put my thing back in my ear. Um, but I've kind of remained like in the same, I don't know, like I've essence
Essence.
of like what, even if I didn't have this TikTok stuff and I was only making money from my salary at my job.
Totally.
Obviously it's shifting now because I like don't have a salary anymore, which is a weird transition.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't think your authenticity comes from how much money you make.
I
And
completely agree with you, but I'm more just I feel
but
like
that's
the
but that's
industry
yeah, I
looks at it that
agree.
way.
I agree.
Or the audience
and
does.
some
That's a better
and
way to
some
put it.
people in the audience do. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like
But also they like it. Like, they like when your outfits get better or more
I
chic or what. So
know.
it's such a weird balance. It's like, do
I
you want me
know.
to be out here
I've
posting
I've
this?
struggled with it because like there's been times I've like bought a designer bag or something.
Yeah, you're like, do I do
And
an
it's
unboxing?
exactly. And it's like, oh, but I mean like but then again I look at my friends, I'm like, I have friends in my circle that just have like regular ass marketing jobs. Can I swear on this podcast? I've like sworn
Yes,
a couple
I
times. Okay,
swear.
good. And they can buy themselves designer bags or whatever. It's also
Yeah.
just one thing I've learned when you talk about like going back to like the influencer stuff and like the big picture of like entering this world is you actually have no idea who's making money and who's not, and who has money, who doesn't,
So
who's got a
true.
Chanel bag but with nothing in it, like that whole
Yeah.
idea. So I just like
Or is it DH Gate? Is it even real?
exactly.
Like,
So I don't think your authenticity comes from how much money you're making because there's no way for any of them to actually know.
no.
I remember
It's smoke and mirrors, baby.
there was a rumor really early on that a colleague of mine came to. He was like, my friend that works in marketing says you got paid $50,000 for this Clorox ad. And I go, I wish. I go, you all think I'm making that much money? Great. If that's what
Yeah,
the
you're like,
rumor
if you
is,
guys
I'm
think
like,
I'm a millionaire out here, hell yeah, baby.
I was like, and this was when I only had like 60,000 followers. So I
Yeah.
was like, all right, it was probably like a brand that I got paid like a couple grand
Yeah.
for. And I was like, whoa, if that's the rumor, like give it to me. I don't care. Like that's hilarious. But yeah,
Totally.
it just proved to me it's like, oh, nobody like really knows. And so I just like try to present as myself still. And I think you can still
Because
be
you are
relatable.
still yourself.
Yeah, like I
you
don't
can't
know
even
how
have to say, you don't even
I
have
know,
to say
but
that.
I understand what you're saying though. Like there's such a like I see comments, like there's such a like divide on like when people like I don't know, the Alex Earls of the world. Like people are mad at her for not doing get readies with me in like her college like apartment
Yeah,
anymore.
it's like the girl's grown up.
the
She is
girls-
making
yeah,
millions now, and she is
exactly.
on
She was
private
in like
jets and living her
6
life.
Super Bowl commercials. Like
Yeah.
it's a different level. It's the same as like the Emma Chamberlains of the world, whatever. Like, or when your favorite small indie actor becomes like is winning an Oscar or something. I just don't. I've never understood the like you're no longer relatable if you have growth.
I know.
And I just it just has never made any sense to me. So I've always been very sensitive to it. Like I try my best. I always thought that's why I was scared when I like left my job. I felt like people were gonna be because a lot of people were like would leave comments along the lines of, oh, like the day you leave your job, like it's over, like you're like that's why you're so relatable. Like when your favorite 9 to 5
Mm,
influencer leaves their job,
mm.
whatever. And the thing is, like I've always been very clear, I was never leaving it to pursue like
To
just
become an
influencer
influencer
full
full
time.
time, yeah.
It's to pursue my own endeavors, which I wanted to do my entire like life.
Career, yeah.
But I was really scared to like post it because I was like, oh God, people
Interesting.
are gonna be like, see ya.
So how do you manage that? Because I know how it goes, right? Like you filter through your comment section, you're taking in
Mhm.
feedback, but you're also trying to stay yourself at the same time.
Mhm.
How much do you let those comments infiltrate your content
Not anymore.
or not at all?
I don't let it infiltrate my content.
Yeah.
It just really depends on the day you're having. I have a rule that if I'm having a bad day already, I don't read the comments because like
Yeah.
even something that's like just has like
Small.
a weird
It
tone,
can throw you off.
or
Yeah.
I like want to reply with my fingers back, and I like have gotten in trouble doing that before. Like not like
Have you
major
done that? I've
trouble.
never responded. I just let
Oh God,
them.
but
I
I
let the
just like
trolls troll.
I know. I've learned to do that now. It's in the past year I've been a lot better at it, but I don't know when you're questioning your character, like it's so hard not to get
So
defensive.
hard. So hard.
And I've been blessed and knock on wood that I haven't really had controversy. I've never really had like a like I mean I'm not controversial, so I don't even know like what it would be, but
Yeah.
I've never really had a ton of hate comments, any of that stuff. So I think that's why when I do get one, it hurts a little more because I'm like not used to them.
Yeah.
But I've learned to just like not read them when I'm not in the mood. And then also like duck no, what is the saying? Oh, water off a duck's back when in. Just let it
Yeah.
flow off when I'm in like a fine mood and can
It's
approach
hard
them.
because there's so many perks of the job, but obviously being a public facing person
Mhm.
is not one of them sometimes because there's
Yeah.
two things. It's like one, when people meet you, they expect a certain version of you. And then
Yeah.
two, obviously anyone online can have an opinion on your life and who you are.
Yeah, and do you wanna know what? I saw a great TikTok the other day about, the audience and the stage, and she was talking about Reddit threads specifically, which I think is more of a YouTube culture thing, like,
Yeah.
it's less,
Reddit
like
scares me.
no, it's terrifying, I don't go on it.
Yeah,
It's
me
the
neither.
worst place on the planet,
Agreed.
but she was talking about how, like, do you wanna know what? Like, let them have the Reddit thread, they're the audience, that's, like, they're playing their role. You're on the stage, like, your role is to be on the stage and to be the performer,
I love that.
and when I started thinking about it that way, I'm like, it's so like, that's the healthiest way you can think about it. It's like, whatever, they're just, like, doing their thing. If that's what they're gonna do,
I
they're gonna
think I've
do
been
it.
doing that by accident. I've been
Yeah.
putting on my performance and letting the audience clap for 10 years. So
But that's the way to
good.
do it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I try not to let it, affect how I make my content by any means. I really am pride myself on that, but it doesn't mean it doesn't affect you when you see something sometimes.
I think you probably have, because you and I are sensitive to at least like how people feel. And I'll have the ones where like if you're making a, not like a clickbaity video, but like anything where you kind of have that, should I post it? And you kind
Yeah.
of know, usually whenever I have that tinge, I
It's
won't
a
post
no.
it. Yeah.
It's a no.
Yeah.
And then also, like, then there was a weird, like, navigating, like, growing in a pandemic was a weird spot.
Yeah.
Because then there was also, like, just, like, how you be a good role model and then
And
like
tons of
being a role model
isolation
and like
too.
and then but like following rules and like what are
Oh,
the rules of the
yeah.
government like all there's just like I feel like because I like grew in like an area where there's a lot of mines and like the opportunity to like people to get really mad if you like broke like a COVID rule or something.
Yeah.
I think because that's how I grew, I just learned to be very like critical of the content I was making always.
But I think that's the right way because I don't think there's longevity in this business for the people that run off of clickbait or run off of
100%.
like pissing people off or making videos just to like get a rise. You know, I don't know. It's
That's
never
so stressful.
never been good to
That's
me.
stressful to me. I
Me
don't
too.
understand. Like, I just am stressed at the idea of that. I don't know how
Same.
you would ever want that
Same.
to be like good for you if you can do it. But I'm like, that just sounds like a mental health nightmare to me.
Agreed.
My therapist would be seeing me a lot if I did that.
What has been an influencer experience that you've had now that you would deem like iconic, like a brand trip or like a favorite brand deal that you've done or something that stands out as really quite exciting?
Wow. I listened to your episode with Mel and she was like, there's been so many, so it's hard. I actually like agree. If I've been doing this for 5 years now,
Yeah.
I've never actually been on a brand trip before. Fun fact. I was sent
Oh.
like by a brand to like a football game, but like it was just me and my dad.
Why
Like,
does that shock me dramatically?
yeah, yeah. I have never been on one. Isn't that crazy?
Okay, 2025 is your year.
Yeah. So I haven't been on one before, but I just think like we were talking before, and this is not glamorous, but like when our university reached out for me to do an actual paid advertisement and they paid my full rate and they had budget and I could like look back and be like, oh, like this is like tuition,
Thank you
a
for
year's
my
worth of tuition
back.
back. That was a moment where I was like, oh shit, like they see me as somebody that's like a successful person from that school to like represent. I thought that was really cool.
That's very
Um,
cool.
there's been, yeah, I don't know. There's been a few. I've got to like, I do presentations sometimes for athletes. Like I work with athletes and their
That's
social
cool.
content and stuff. And so with it, I'll like put a like deck up about like all the brands I've worked with. And sometimes when I look at that is when I'm like, oh shoot, like I've worked with like everyone from like IKEA to Sport Check to like, I don't know, like restaurant brands, like a bunch of really cool
Totally.
people. I think concerts is really cool. That one was like I worked with Rogers for the Eras tour.
Ugh,
I didn't get to go
love.
with Rogers. That was a very controversial thing at the time. They didn't give me tickets,
Really?
but I got paid by them, so who cares? but I did like promoting the Eras tour. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'm like getting paid to promote Taylor Swift. No complaints.
Yeah. Did I tell you the story about how I was invited to go with,
No.
I don't even know if I talked about this on the pod, but I couldn't end up posting about it because of all the controversy. So I
Oh,
ended up just
really?
literally going, and
And
I was
not
paid by
posting?
a brand to go, and then I didn't
Didn't post
post
about
about it
it?
because the fans, the
Yeah, there
uproar.
was uproar for that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like I paid myself to go to both nights. And so like even that I knew was controversial, even though I'd
I
always
know.
gone to
It's
2 nights of
like,
Taylor Swift in
yeah.
Toronto, like for the past 15 years.
How did you
But
secure the tickets?
I had a verified fan. My sister had a code,
Classic.
and then I got tickets the first night that I went. So that one I had tickets for like a year and a half. And
Sure.
then a friend of mine works at the Rogers Center, and he got like
Okay.
work tickets. And then so like the
Access.
boys were all on like it's just classic Toronto
I
networking.
know.
Like I didn't know how to explain it to people, being
I
like
went
that's how
twice too, and both were through work and
it's how
network.
it works.
So,
It's
yeah.
and
Which
so
is shit for
it's how it
everyone else,
works.
but
But it's how Toronto
I
works.
know.
Like half that stadium was corporate tickets. I knew people that were going that were like, oh,
Totally.
I don't even like Taylor Swift, but it's just like they got
Yes.
offered corporate tickets. But yeah,
It's unfortunate for the fans, and that I get.
and but
But I was
it
a fan, so it
but
wasn't
exactly.
unfortunate
But
for
that's
me.
crazy that like you didn't post it. I mean, I don't blame you. There was like
No, I was asked not to. Specifically, contractually asked not to speak about it. Paid out, asked to
oh,
not speak about it,
that's
and
but
given
that's
free
like
tickets.
that's incredible when you don't have to do. But it's crazy that
Yeah.
like that was the discourse.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
kind of freaked me out. But
No, I know. It was like I was nervous going the second time, but my only like feather in my hat, the only chip I had was that I paid for them both
yeah, you're like,
myself.
these
And
are
it was like if you had the opportunity to, you would go twice as well.
100%.
So that was like my only like thing.
And
but
sometimes when it's that level of content where it's like, sure, I know it might get an uproar out of someone, but it's also like, I know I didn't do anything bad. I will still post that because I'm like, I know the comment section is just going to be pissed off, but like, it's fine. You're helping my engagement.
exactly.
I can't really.
I also leaned the fuck in the second week. Like I literally dressed up like a mirror ball because I have a mirror ball tattoo. So I
Yes.
was like just trying to show like, hello people.
I'm a
Like
fan.
it is tattooed on my body. Like I'm not the person you should be yelling at right now.
Totally.
You know?
Don't
So
come for me.
anyways, it's just sad that you had to like that we had to like think that
Everyone
way.
had to qualify the reason
I
they got
know.
invited.
I know, which was crazy.
It is what it is. Do you have a campaign you regret? You've had some good ones. But
Oh.
anything that you were like, oh,
Yeah. I had a campaign where and it was like a brand that I was like so crazy excited to work with. And then I was actually in a Leafs box with TikTok. I was with
Oh,
TikTok Canada and I
very
was invited
chic.
through my like CBC job. It wasn't like my real
Oh,
job, but whatever.
okay.
But it was cool. And I get a call from my manager Jacob being like, they're like freaking out. Say, like this girl just called me freaking out saying that you have to post the video. I'd finished the ad that day and I'd delivered it early, like
Yeah.
3 days early, whatever.
Right.
She's like calling Jacob saying, if Sarah doesn't post today, I'm going to tell the brand she's difficult to work with. And like
What?
called him and then was like mass emailing in this chain. Well, and Jacob had to call and be like, she's literally in the box, like with your client, with TikTok, and like stressing I was so stressed. And this is like this is early days. This is like
So you were
first,
finding your cadence and
yeah, but like at this point, I
You were
didn't know
like,
what
I did
was
nothing
normal, but I
wrong.
didn't. I delivered everything early. What had happened was the girl who was in charge of the campaign messed up the dates, and
Classic.
this is when a couple years ago, you know, when you'd open the app and your ad would pop up, that was really popular. I forgot what
Yes.
it was called, but they don't do them a ton anymore, but you could like charge extra money for it, whatever.
Yep.
It was supposed to be like the top view. It was supposed to be the top view ad when you opened the app for the next day, but she
Sure.
had messed up the dates. So then I was like, what were we gonna do if I didn't deliver it 3 days early? So
Right.
anyways, Jacob had to like get on the phone with like, as I'm in this box and I'm like walking in and I'm stressed and like I ended up posting it and covering for
Yeah.
them, but it was the threatening of saying I will tell the brand she's difficult to work with.
Yeah.
Jacob like had to go straight to the top and like call their VP and everything of this PR company to be like, this is what we were just threatened with. This is like, we're never going to work with you again. And to this day, we have not worked with that PR company again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was like year 2 maybe of making
And
content.
also, good on you for obviously following through and just getting it done, but then also good on you for being like, no, these are my boundaries. Like, this
For
is not
sure.
acceptable.
It
Like,
was insane.
you know,
Like they kept saying like TikTok's asking for TikTok's doing all this.
it's like,
Jacob's
I'm
like,
with TikTok.
I'm with them right
that would
now.
be me on the phone. Hi, I'm with TikTok. So
Yeah.
actually lose my number.
That was the time though that like that was the first time I really had to have like Jacob like stand up. Jacob's my manager and
Yeah.
podcast co-host for this. I don't know. That was my first time. I was like, oh, this is what people of management. Because I was like, I'm so not confrontational and would not be good in that setting. Cause like
Yeah.
I don't want to be seen as hard to work with.
Yeah, of
And
course.
especially by this massive brand that I was so excited to work with.
Mm,
And like, lo and behold, I've never worked with them again. Like, I think
it's
it's just,
hard.
it's through that company. It's just the thing I had to give up. I don't even think that person that messed up and threatened works at that company anymore, but it still just is like
Bad taste in the
such a
mouth.
bad taste.
Yeah.
And that was early on. So,
Especially when you're doing all the it is it's funny. This was what my whole episode that I filmed before this, so it'll be next week's episode before ours comes out. But it was essentially this topic, which is like for women particularly, we're always like qualifying or feeling
mhm,
apologetic when brands or certain people just don't see us the way we want to be perceived. And it's like, I know I'm hardworking, I know I'm actually easy to work with, I know I'll deliver,
mhm,
like all these things. But then when someone's positioning you like it's something else, it just feels like an attack
for
on who
sure.
you are. And you're like, oh,
Exactly.
okay.
And
Like,
I feel like, and that goes like for everything, whether it's like
yeah.
questioning anything that questions like my character, work ethic, that's where I get like really like defensive and like offended. So I think
Yeah.
that's where it was just like I spiraled after, but we've never worked with them since.
Wow.
But that was, oh, it was
Fair
a tough
enough.
one to give up.
Fair
That was
enough.
like that was a stressful
So
night.
it's not a regrettable campaign. It's a
I,
regrettable way that it
I guess, yeah,
happened.
that's like, I don't really have like a regrettable, like, I
Brand collab.
yeah, there's been ones that have like I've pulled out of in the 11th hour. Like I've
Wow.
filmed the video, I've been ready to post, but something in my gut is like, this is not.
No
I've
way.
had, yeah, and but what I've always done is I've pre-set up with a friend
Yeah.
who I know charges a similar rate and will do it and turn it around and then like given it to them.
Yeah.
So that I'm not like
Wow.
leaving the brand
High
hanging,
and
but
dry.
it's happened a couple times. One, because like I just like learned things about the brand that I was like,
Mm,
and like I don't love
align with
this.
this anymore.
I can't do it. And then the other one was, it was a little bit too, I used to have to keep church and state with work, right? Because I work in media,
Oh,
and it was a little too, it was like a sports streaming
too
platform.
close.
And at the time I was like, I can do it. And then it got too close. And then I like floated it by someone at work, and they're like, you're going to get in a lot of trouble for that. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I
You're
shouldn't.
like, is this
So
not worth it?
I guess
Fair
those,
enough.
that one I actually regret not doing, just because I definitely could have gotten away with it. And it
Yeah.
was a pretty paycheck. But I just like, at the time I felt so sick at the idea of doing it that I was like,
Yeah.
I
It's
can't do
funny
that.
too. I think people think that sometimes influencers don't have that moral compass, and the reality is like
If
we're
any,
constantly checking it. Like
if
that is
anything, like it's like the reason you don't have a lot of like regrettable deals is because like
exactly because you're
you don't
choosing
let
the
it
right
get, yeah,
brand
you don't let
partners.
it get to that
Which is what
point.
Mel was saying too, which is so true. It's like it would just be an immediate no versus like
Yeah,
filtering into like the workflow, you know?
exactly. Like, or we've had like partners that we are like almost signed on with, but then it's like the ask suddenly changes, or the way that they're like demanding things changes, and it's like, we don't want this to become a regrettable thing or something that's like not on brand with my content. So then we axe it like before it can get to
Even
that
gets
point.
that
So
far.
yeah, I feel like you don't live with regrets if you just don't let it get to that point.
Agreed. Agreed. Very, very well said.
Oh, thanks.
Do you think that you have special, well, we kind of like chatted about this a little bit, but do you have special qualities that make you stand out as an
Mm.
influencer?
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
so
I can
hard.
tell you yours.
Okay, tell me. I'm really bad at like look I like I'm bad at taking compliments, and I'm bad at like looking inward and like complimenting
Your
myself.
therapist is like, Sarah, please
I literally have
compliment
therapy
yourself.
right after this. I'm gonna be like, so I was on this podcast and I couldn't say what I'm good at.
Okay,
Okay.
well, I can give you so many things. I think you're really great at really quick turnaround. Like I
Oh,
feel like
thanks.
the amount of content you push out is very impressive, and it's really hard for people to be consistent, one, and then to actually put out good content.
Thank you.
So the fact that you can actually keep up day to day for 3 years posting as often as you did is insane and
Yeah.
like a huge feat.
I appreciate that.
Two, letting people in organically into your life and like showing them behind the scenes and like really letting them get a taste of what is happening. Like even I don't do like I can't comfortably do that. Like I'm like no one has seen any of my home renovations or any of my outfits, or like I definitely have a more curated approach, probably because of I don't know, protecting my own mental health, but
For sure.
whatever.
And you've been doing this for a million years, so
Yeah, like
I
just so many
appreciate that.
so many good
Thank you.
things.
The thing I pride myself the most on is turnaround
Yeah.
and consistency. So I'm glad that doesn't go unnoticed.
And your voiceovers and you're talking
Oh,
fast.
thank you. Yeah, my
Talking fast in the voiceovers and the podcast.
and the podcast.
Yeah.
Yes, I thank you. I think like truly, it just all goes back to being a producer
Yeah.
first. Like even Jacob said the reason he signed me was because like he could watch a video and tell that I was a producer in the way that I like think about
Oh, I
how
love
the
that.
story is telling. So
Yeah.
I was like, that's such a nice compliment.
is
That's why I've
good.
never forgot it. So thank you. I
Aw,
appreciate that. The
good.
consistency thing is like. That's why like when people ask for advice on like how to become a creator, I'm like, I don't know. I just like post it
You're
a
like,
lot.
go for it. Yeah.
I just posted a lot and it happened. Like I don't like I've never, and this is probably like bad and probably why I haven't had like a ton of growth or whatever. Like I've had consistent growth, but never like a viral whatever.
Yeah.
It's because I don't like what time of day to post, all of those like
That
I
you're like,
don't
that's not my thing.
I don't know.
That kind of leads into my next question. Like, do you care about virality? Do
No.
you even lean into it? Do you want virality? Like, what's your
No,
take on that?
virality kind of scares me.
I get that.
because I never wanted to be some like I was always nervous about like going viral for something that I don't like doing.
Yeah.
Because like if you post something, then that's what you go viral for, and then the algorithm just wants you like
To
feeding that
constantly do
thing. I
that
was like,
thing.
oh God, like that would be like not fun.
Yeah.
Um, I've only had like a couple videos that have like the millions of views.
Yeah.
I only even like early pandemic when like you could post a video and gain like 100,000 followers overnight. I never
Yeah.
had that. I always had slow, consistent growth, and I'm still on the same. If you
Which
looked
is
at
better.
my
Yeah.
following from TikTok at least and Instagram, I guess too, it's been the same like consistent like 10,000 on TikTok, 10K a year. Like
Yeah.
it's just like since I hit 100K, it's been like 10K a year for the last like 3 or 4
Yeah.
years since. And I like that. I feel like it's
You
like
also
slow
learn a
and
lot
steady.
more about the industry
A
that
hundred
way. Like
percent.
I know Jack and I chatted about that too, but there is something scary to be said about the Gen Zs that like go from 100K to a million overnight and then
Mhm.
don't know what to do with it. Like now you're set up to fully be able, and don't you think also like the universe is great that way? Like watch
Mhm.
this year, you'll explode because you've set yourself up for success. Like I've thought about that a lot about the podcast too. And I know you get it because you're growing your pod and it's really challenging to start a new project, but like
Mhm.
you do have to at a certain point be like, when things get set up and it finally feels right, there's
Exactly.
something to that.
A
Like
hundred
it's not
percent.
like I like the slow growth too. I think it
Yeah.
allows you to make mistakes, learn, find the right cadence, and then you're ready to like level up
Well,
and
it's
level
the
up and level
idea of
up.
like when it's like motion creates more movement, right? So it's like if something's like a ball starts like rolling down a hill, it starts slow and then it goes fast, 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 and it just like
Yeah.
starts firing off. And I think that's how I've always approached it.
Yeah.
I've never really done like one of my things in my contracts is like most of them is like Jacob always says Sarah doesn't do trends. I don't even know.
Oh, I like
I
that.
also am a big user, not a seller. I'm sorry,
Ah,
seller, not a user. That's the right way to say it. I'm a seller, not a user.
okay.
I don't
Tell me more.
consume a ton of TikTok. Like I consume,
Oh.
I'd say, an average amount, but like my
Yeah.
screen time's not crazy.
Yeah.
I'm a big reader, like I do other things, and I think that's because one, I don't allow it to influence the type of content I'm
It's
making,
true.
and two, I'm not like going for those like viral like this is how you can grow 10,000
Dude, it can
whatever.
like ruin you. Like I've had months where I go too deep into the using. This
Yeah.
sounds like it's like a drug
No, but
podcast.
it is.
I'm been using.
Not a drug
I,
podcast, but it is like a drug.
it is like a drug, and
Yeah.
I was using. I was using too much, and I was in deep. Like I would like be in the trends or figure, and then
Yeah.
you're like, oh, how do I become that like aesthetic, whatever, whatever,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, oh my god, that's not you, girl. Like
I
go back
know.
to your like
That's me.
quippy content.
Well, even
Like
this weekend, like we're in this beautiful cabin and like Tara and I are like making these things. We're like making a list of like videos we're gonna make. And like even like I posted one of like the sound like dun 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 like in your head, like when you're
yeah,
reading a book. And it's like this beautiful above shot of me reading in this A-frame. And I look at it and I feel fraudulent. I go, Sarah,
right.
this is not
My
you.
content.
This is not I'm
Yeah.
even when I'm not I don't think to take photos. Like the reason I started my weekly photo dumping is because I just wanted to like have an excuse to take photos more. And I
I
just
like that.
don't feel like an aesthetic person. I
Yeah.
don't feel cool. I don't feel like an aesthetic person. I'm like, just let me
Let me be
post my
me.
little vlogs. So
Don't you think that's why it works though? Because you're
it's the
not
only
trying
way
to
I've been
be
sustainable.
something else.
A
Like,
100%.
and it's so funny because I'm the same. It's like as much as I could lean in and try to be like that aesthetic person, it's like no, no, no. Like I know people come to my page for like that more like smiley, confident, like
Yeah,
chatty. Like
exactly.
that's more it. It's not like oh me. I don't know, sitting in an aesthetic kitchen.
Yeah,
You
well,
know.
100%. And like I love consuming that content personally.
Totally,
And
same.
I aspire to like those people, I'm like, oh my God, incredible. But it's just not me. Like
Agreed.
I can't do it. And so I think I've always appreciated slow growth. And I watched the you and Jack episode where you guys
Yeah.
were both like, watch us like blow up though. And then like, oh yeah, just kidding. Virality is amazing.
That's what I'm saying.
I understand, but like I think only in the sense of if I could use it to do like other things. Like if I can go viral because I talk about like how I'm trying to write a movie script and like that's how I land a deal, then absolutely
Well, that's
give it
what I'm
to
saying.
me.
If I go viral for doing what I'm doing now,
Then great.
10/10.
I like forever. Whereas my vlogs like kind of sit in the same thing, but yeah, like I thought about this the other day. I'm like, what if suddenly one day one of these vlogs like goes viral and
Yeah.
all these people are suddenly like, wow, we love Sarah's vlogs. I was like, I just had to think about it that way. I was like, okay, then I'd be fine with that because I'm
Yeah.
still doing what I enjoy doing. But if I went viral for like something that didn't like trends
It's
that doesn't
hard.
feel like me. I just don't think it doesn't give me the
Sometimes it can
dopamine
give
hit
you the
the right
platform
way.
to shift though. Like sometimes I think about Alex Cooper and Call Her Daddy, and it's like, when she
It's true.
started, it was so sexualized, and like that's kind of what was getting clickbait and working for her. And
Mhm.
obviously now it's interesting that she's gone, so not she's still that way, but she has really pivoted and adjusted. And so there is two schools of thought
Exactly.
because you can leverage that virality to like shift the audience to care about something else, and I do think that that can work as well. But
For
I
sure.
agree with you. Like
I just think for
slow and steady wins
longevity,
the race.
exactly. I think for longevity and like having people genuinely care and like the amount of people that tell me like they've
Agreed.
watched my content since 2020, like
Yeah.
5 years ago, I think it's because it's just like slow and consistent. And my whole thing is I'll just always kind of be here and I'll just keep
Aw.
doing it. And like if one day I decide I don't want to do it anymore, then I'll just stop. Like
Yeah.
it's just the
Because your
reality of it.
identity is not tied to your work.
We're trying not to be. Ask me on another day, and maybe like it is tied too closely to my
No,
work.
I like it. Okay, two more questions. I've taken up too much of your time. So, do you have any influencers? I know you're saying you don't follow trends, so that's interesting because maybe your answer to this will be no. But do you have any influencers in the industry that you look up to, or you're like, oh, I like what they're doing, I like their trajectory, on Alex Cooper or whatever? Like, do you have anyone or influences that you look at for your career?
Someone that was really interesting because we had them on Talking Fast on our podcast was Kate, like Care with Kate.
I love her.
So what's so funny is like Kate
She
and I-
also had a corporate job, right?
yeah, Kate and I have followed each other for like a long time since like before she like popped off with like the gift card roulette series
Yeah.
and stuff. So she came on the pod and then her and I went for like dinner at Soho after.
Cute.
And it was very sweet. And like, it's the reason I've held this is because it's just like, I took it as like the biggest compliment is like, we were talking and she, cause I like never assume someone like knows who I am when they come on the pod or they talk or whatever. And she was like, she made a comment about how she goes, I always wanted an audience like yours. Like, that's what I've always been aiming for. And I've held that to such a like close part of my heart and like such a high standard. Cause that's like the biggest compliment
That
that
is such
someone
a
like
nice
was seeking after that.
compliment.
Cause I looked at her, I'm like, you are somebody that I look up to. Like the way that she
Totally.
is so herself, that she's so natural and then like can create such compelling series. Like I'm not good at a series. Like
Yeah.
she's so good at creating a series, whether
Totally.
a skincare series with like
The spa
the
reviews,
spa reviews, the gift card roulette, any of that. And like
So
series
good.
is how you like
Grow.
can grow. And I look to her for like, oh my God, like I should create a series, like inspiration. So for when she said that, it was just like a great moment of like when two people just mutually respect each other. And I loved it.
Yeah. I think we need more of that in the
yeah.
industry. Or the thing is, I think what I should say is I think it actually very much exists, but sometimes you're not blessed to have the experience to sit down with someone and actually tell them. And I think that's what's really cool when you get to have those moments of like, I respect what you do, you respect what I do. Oh my God, that's so nice. And you kind of have that full circle moment.
And I mean, you know this. I've always looked up to you because you've been able to like pivot a million times. Like, guys, like I was
1 million
No, but
times.
I mean, like you've been doing this for I say a million years because it's like it feels like a million years we've known each other. It's been like 10, but it's like forever ago. Like I remember being in a Pittman Hall restroom and you were like, oh, I'm getting paid for an ad on Instagram. I have to post this photo. And I don't even remember what the ad was for. Like, who knows
Back
what?
then, it was
hair
shady
extensions
shit, man.
or like
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
it might have been. And we were all sitting there and all being like, you're getting paid money just to post an Instagram photo? You're like, yeah, it's like the new way. And we're like, whoa.
It's the new wave.
And we're like, we
Not
couldn't.
me saying that in 2014. It's the new wave.
No, but like you were on it. And so it's just I was always so grateful that like, then when I started going to those events and like that new influencer world became, because it's terrifying. Like if you're someone that doesn't know anyone, like, sorry, that sucks because that's like terrifying. Whereas at least I knew I could like walk into a room and then I had like you and Jacqueline and I could like go and be like, okay, like I'm with like the people I'm with the pros. I'm with the people that have been doing this forever. Now I feel like I've been doing this forever because it's like 5 years.
You're the pro now.
We were talking about this. I know.
Now people want to be standing beside you in the room.
Oh goodness. And now when I do go into the room, I don't go into those rooms a lot anymore. But yeah, I just like I've always like looked up to you as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You know that though.
So I need to stop inviting my friends on because it just
they just like hype you up.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, I bring in hype men, and that's why they're here to hype me up.
It's just the
Thank
They're
you,
all from
thank
different eras too. All
It's
the people you've had
true.
on, so
It's
it's
very
like it just
true.
like shows consistency.
No, well, thank you. I very much appreciate that.
Of course.
I like to end on this question. What have you learned on TikTok this week?
What have I learned on TikTok this week? Oh, ooh, Oh, okay.
What happened on TikTok this week?
Okay, I was telling Tara about this, and it's kind of embarrassing, but I am not like I like Disney, but I'm not like a Disney adult. Like I'm not someone that consumes a lot of content. But there's this man Blake, and he collects pins, and he does the pin trading.
Served him.
You would, if you see his face, he is a sweet angel man. He collects Winnie the Pooh stuff. You will know. Follow this. I don't know his username, Blake. And I learned all about pin collecting and pin trading at Disney. And it's kind of cool because like the Olympics has pin trading, but it's like a different thing. So it's like Disney, and he does the mystery pin packs. And look, I don't know why I'm so invested in this content, but I just watch this man, like I'm like doing my skincare this morning. It's like my Octobody's stuck to the mirror, and I'm
Yeah.
watching this man like unbox pins and like hoping that he gets the full set. And I
Wait,
think it's the
that's
sweetest
really
thing I'm playing. So I guess
cute.
this is something I guess I learned more about the surprise pin boxes and the pin trading and how expensive
also,
these
like,
pins are.
Joyful
No,
content.
it's like the most wholesome content. Like that's what I want my For You page to be, because I've had a lot of like doom scrolling political stuff on my feed recently. So when I
Yeah.
see this sweet angel who's wearing a Winnie the Pooh sweater and like unboxing pins,
Yeah.
give it to me.
How do you feel about that? Like, are you cool managing the political with the fun, or do you want it just to be fun, or like, what's your take
I
on
think
that?
it's like healthy to have, I think
A
it's important to have a
balance.
balance, because
Yeah.
I think if you make it's all escapism, then like, I think that's
Then-
dangerous.
yeah.
And then people don't vote in elections, which this is going to be posted post like the election. But like
Yeah,
I was just
2
telling Tori,
weeks.
I just posted a video today saying it's embarrassing if you don't vote in elections. So
Yes.
like I like to have it be a mix ideally, but it is scary that sometimes when we watch too much of a type of video, then it's like your entire page becomes that. And
or you're
then-
just in an echo chamber, which is what scares me.
yeah, and I never want to be in an echo chamber either. So I think it's important to have a balance
Yeah.
if you can, but also
Do you
understanding getting it from different
engage?
sources.
I was just learning this as someone that's been on social media so long. Like, I was getting served the same ads over and over and over again. And then Jacqueline was like, why don't you just say you dislike it?
Oh, I
like-
didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah, and then you're not served it again. So then I was like, oh. And then so my question was, do you do that with like political content? Like if you're served something but you actually are not aligned, will you say I dislike
I
this
straight up
content?
I didn't even know you could do
Okay,
that.
because I think that's how you teach the algorithm.
Oh, when you like or don't like something.
So I don't. But again, would it stop you then from being served both sides? Like that does
I know
feel a bit
it's
tricky.
tough. That's algorithms and like politics in general is such a messy conversation.
Yeah.
But I do think like there's a place for escapism. I get my escapism from like books. Like that's what
Yeah.
I do. But
What are you reading right now? That's a good
I'm
question.
reading a book called Quicksilver. It's a romantasy.
Okay.
It's very good. If you like ACOTAR or Fourth Wing, any of that, if you're like looking to fill that void.
I
it's
was
great.
just on Dominican reading The Wedding People.
Oh, I just finished that last
How
week.
did you like it? I'm halfway through and I had to stop halfway through because I was like,
it's a little depressing.
Oh, is it? 'Cause
No,
I was
no,
a
the
bit,
start.
like,
I mean, like
bored.
the start of it. It's a
yeah.
little depressing.
I got midway through and I got a bit bored.
Okay, so I talked about it on the podcast, being like, when do I determine when I DNF a book? Like, how do I pick? And then I was on a plane in a middle seat with nothing to watch on TV, so I finished it, and I ended up liking how it ended.
Okay, so the end is worth getting to.
Yes and no. I would say like it's like
I
kind
would
of how
rate
you
it
expect
honestly
it to
a
end.
2 out of 5, maybe less.
It's hard. It's not one that has
Why
a
is
lot of
everyone
like.
hype on it? Like,
I don't know.
I hate when people hype on a book and then it's not actually good. I'm like, honestly,
What's
screw
the-
all y'all.
Okay, what's like a book you've loved that you've read recently then?
I just started a new one. Oh my God, what is it called? When the World Tips Over.
Oh, I haven't heard about that.
Okay, and that's starting out really well. So
You have to hook me from the start.
That's
And I
the
think that's
same,
the issue with the
same.
Wedding People, is that it doesn't really hook you from the start. It's a really, it's a
Yes.
character driven
only
book.
the
and
first
character
chapter is
growth.
good, and then
I
it was
know.
like, what?
It's a character growth driven book. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, I think. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it and I was able to like finish it, but
What do you rate books on?
I used Fable, not and Goodreads, but usually Fable, because Fable lets you do half stars as opposed to Goodreads. It's like a hard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But
Do you
yeah.
rate movies as well? Do you do
Letterboxd? Yeah.
Yeah, Adam does too. He's so
I'm
dramatic
obsessed.
about
Oh,
it.
I'm gonna follow Adam on Letterboxd.
His
I
are hilarious.
Does he leave reviews too?
He goes, fell asleep during Wicked. Like, they're fucking not okay. Like, no, you didn't fall. Like, he actually straight up
so
fell.
dramatic.
I took him to Wicked and he slept through literally all of part 1. Like, so
My
bad.
God, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
I'm like,
follow
that's
Adam on-
going to delay your Oscar by at least a year just in karma
because
alone.
of that. John M. Chu's gonna approach him one day and be like,
Yeah.
"I love your cinematography," and he's gonna be like, "Take away the Letterboxd, delete, wipe the account."
100%.
That's so
Oh my
funny.
God.
I'm gonna follow Adam on Letterboxd.
Yeah,
That's
love
so
it.
funny. I'm just like the issue with Letterboxd is I will leave like, I don't know, like Little Women 2019 Greta Gerwig has like 5 stars, and then I'll give like
Oh.
something else that's like, I don't know, like an Oscar winning movie like a 2 or 1. It's just based on
Sure.
whether I was entertained during
I get it.
Like I think I gave The Wedding Planner with J-Lo, like that movie,
Yeah.
more stars than Conclave that I watched the other night. Like
Really?
it's just based on
It's
my
just,
vibe.
Like, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, 5 star. Like, I feel
easy,
like-
easy 5 star. Crazy
An
Stupid
easy
Love,
5
easy 5 star. And then it's like I don't know, like Honora. Honora was good, but I
I
gave it
liked
like
Nora.
4 stars because I'm like,
Yeah,
I
it
don't
deserved
know.
4. I
Like,
would give it 4.
so it's just based off the vibe. If you look at my consistency, there's none. There's no consistency in the
I feel
rating.
that. It's just based on emotion.
Exactly, how you
Which
feel.
is the worst way to make
I
a rating,
know,
but
I
that's
know.
fine.
That's why I'm not a film critic.
Yeah. Me neither, even though I would like to be. Sarah Jenkins, thank you for coming on the pod. Guys, follow her
Thanks.
on all the platforms. Find Talking Fast, the
Thanks.
podcast. Go listen to her and Jacob rant on about all the good stuff.
Yeah, you have to come back on. It's been too long.
I would love to. We'll have you on again. And
Love.
thanks for tuning into the episode, guys. I will see you next time. I love you, mean it. Bye.
Slay.